Hi everyone. I've had a few students reach out to me to say that they've had some trouble finding enough sources on the database or quality sources that they can use in their paper, and also to ask, why are we using these database sources? Can I use sources that aren't from the database? So today I've put together a quick presentation for you to go over my best tips and tricks for using the GCC Arizona Library Database, and also to talk to you about how to handle those sources that you find that are really good, but maybe they're not from the database. So here's what we're going to talk about today. First, in order to know what you need to find, you need to understand the parts of the essay that are coming up. So the outline for the essay has been available to you, but I've discovered that a lot of you aren't using that outline. So let's talk about the parts of the essay. I have 5 tips and tricks for using the database wisely. Then I'm going to talk to you about how to CRAAP test sources that are not from the database, and how to check the media bias chart regarding sources that are not from the database. So let's start here. Here are the parts of the essay that you're going to write. So if you understand what the paper is going to look like, then you'll know what you're looking for. So you're going to have an introduction section that's going to be about 2 paragraphs in length, and it should end with your argument-based thesis statement. In this intro section, I want to hear a history of the issue. I want to hear modern context. Why does this topic matter right now? And then information on either the human right that you are writing about or about the community that you're writing about. Really, you're just setting the stage for your argument and informing your audience. What does somebody need to know if they don't know very much about your topic? Then you're going to move into the argument section. This is at least 3 paragraphs in length. It could be as many as 5. Here you're going to either prove that this issue negatively affects the community you're writing about, or prove that it is a human rights abuse. So this is the basic argument section that you probably know that you're looking for this. In the third part of the paper, you're going to present the counter argument of those who oppose you. What do they have to say? And there's going to be a little transition paragraph where you just are moving into the solution section. And at the very end of that transition paragraph, there will be a solution, I'm going to call it a sub-thesis or a mini-thesis statement. In this section, you want to present the argument of the opposition. This is either those who oppose your argument or those who downplay its significance. Be sure to use research here. Sometimes people just write from memory, but you need to research it. Are there any concessions you need to make, like an argument that somebody makes that's pretty good, and you could say, yes, this statistic is true, but, and then after you've presented that counter argument and done your concessions, you need to rebut that argument, meaning you need to pick it apart and explain why it's an invalid argument. Also, I want to see some research here too. Okay, in the second half of the essay, you're going to move into that solution section. So you've got 3 to 5 paragraphs here. So you need to present 2 solutions that have been tried that just didn't cut it. And then you want to present the solution, the one that your paper stands behind. Remember, you're writing in third-person point of view, so I'm not going to say your solution. I'm going to say the solution presented in the paper that can really make a difference in this issue. In the solution part, in the paragraphs where you're writing about the solution you stand behind, take as many paragraphs as you need. So you may want more than 1 paragraph here. Then finally, you're going to have your conclusion section. This is 1 to 2 paragraphs. Sum up the argument and close with a call to action. There should be no research and no new ideas in this part of the paper. That's all done, and now you're wrapping it up. Of course, your paper will end with a works cited page. There should not be any annotations. You need to remove those before you give me your works cited page. There should be at least 8 sources used in the paper. Remember that it always stands alone on the last page of the essay, and it should also be an MLA style. So, let's talk about my tips for searching the database, now that you know what that paper looks like. Tip number 1. Sometimes people just go to the GCC library and do a big blanket search. Don't do that. Search specific databases. So go to the database webpage, here's the web address, and pick out specific databases. I've done another recording about this before, so you may want to watch that again if you want my recommendations on which databases you should use. Number 2, If you are only interacting with this class from the calendar, you are missing some information. Make sure you go back to Unit 2.2 and look at some PDFs that are in Canvas. Specifically, there's one about Boolean operators. Read that and use Boolean operators when you do your searches. Tip number 3. Look at the sources that have been cited in the sources you've already found. If you found some sources that are really good, take a look at what they're citing. If you found some sources that aren't in the database, but it's really good, what are they citing? Can you find any of those sources on your own? And instead of quoting a quotation, like, you're reading this great journal article and they quote some authority figure, because they read his or her work, go find that source for yourself and quote it originally. Tip number 4. So instead of just searching about your topic, think about your main arguments, your main paragraph arguments, and then again, use that Boolean operator. So poverty and housing, racial equality and housing. If you're writing a paper on the housing crisis, think about what you think those main paragraphs might need to be about and do a more narrow search. Also, you need to be searching, obviously, for terms that will turn up your counter argument or your solution information. My last tip is tip number 5. Try using Ask a Librarian. When you go to the GCC webpage, you're going to see this little button pop up. And if you click Chat Now during work days, you're going to talk to one of the librarians at our school. So it's a really great option. I like to tell my students that looking for source material is kind of like searching for pennies in the street. They're out there, but you may have to walk a long way and search intently to find them. In a 16-week course, I give at least 2 weeks just to look for sources. In an 8-week class, you don't have as much time as that, but just realize that the whole class has stopped and there's really not been a whole lot else in the way of work for our class because I know how hard it is to find those sources and read them and find the information that you want. Now, what about those sources that aren't in the database? How can you decide whether or not you could use them? First thing you could do, let me adjust my face here. The first thing you could do is apply the CRAAP test. So CRAAP stands for currency, relevance, authority, accuracy, and purpose. So currency means, is it timely? If you're writing something about technology, your sources need to be really, really recent. If you're writing about COVID, your sources are just naturally going to be really recent because it's only been around for, a year at the time of me making this video anyhow. Relevance. Is it useful for your paper? Is it written at an appropriate level? I have elementary school age students who sometimes like to use National Geographic Kids. That's great for them. That's not appropriate for us, even if the information is good. Authority. Take a look at the author, take a look at the publisher, the editors. What are their credentials? Who is this publication? Is the author qualified to write on the topic? You may have to do a little digging and look into that person's background. Accuracy. Are they citing their sources? Is it supported by evidence? Is this just somebody's opinion that they're just pulling out of thin air, or are they citing sources? Think about the bias here. Is it free of emotion? That's a really big deal. Straight up academic writing and news should not be angry. It should just be the facts. So if you're getting something that's a source that has a lot of emotion in it, I would say move along. And then lastly, purpose. Make sure that the purpose is to either inform or to teach. Consider a double check on anything that is to persuade. It might be okay, but take another look at it. Anything that's selling you something is not an accurate source. This is not a good source to use in English 102. And again, look at that bias again. Are there political, religious, or institutional biases there? The last thing I like to ask my students to do is to check out the Ad Fontes Media Bias Chart. So you can see that this goes this way here for how much reliable information they give. Sources at the top have more reliable information, and at the bottom it may be unreliable or even fake information. And on the bottom, you're going to see people who these sources lean to the left, meaning progressive, These sources lean to the right, meaning conservative. So take a look at this upper centerpiece. These places are highly informative, highly reliable, and they're not really left or right biased. So you really are going to do well to find sources that fall in this area of the media bias chart. If you try to cite something from InfoWars in your paper, I'm not going to accept that source. I'm only going to accept sources from this little sweet area right here. When in doubt, reach out. Come see me in my student support hours. Talk to a librarian. Send me a message and ask for help. Send me what you've got and let me know. Let's talk about it. I'm always here to help and support all of you and see you be successful in English 102. I hope this video helped you out, and I will see you all in Canvas.